Look what I got. It says Dewalt DCD776 D2T. So whatever that is. 18 volt, lithium ion, 2 amp hour. And I think it's got clips on this side, yeah, clips. Got the nose. Inside we've got a battery charger, 2 batteries, oh, it's had some sort of testing done on it. It was next due to be tested 22nd of the, is that the 11th? Yeah, the 11th, 24. So it's just passed its most recent test. That's an electrical test. And this is the drill. But if you look, the trigger, that bit, the selection thing, is doing nothing and won't move. And the trigger itself won't move. Right, so there's our battery. Now I haven't tried this, but I've had it described to me. If I put this in here, can't stop it. Whoa, that doesn't sound very good, does it? So it works, or it appears to work, just doesn't stop working. Let's try taking it apart and, oh, that's handy, it's that size. So what's that? T10. A Dewalt for a Dewalt, that seems fair enough, doesn't it? Right, so in there, yep, that's loose. I wonder if there should have been something there, some sort of clippy thing, I suppose. Now, I don't know if we need to take the chuck off first, so we'll find that out together, because sometimes you need to take the chuck off so you can take this ring off, in which case this case here is not going to come off. We'll find out. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think we can get to that one. Let's try a magnet. Oh, 8. There you are. Remember a magnet. So does this lift off, or are there any funny clips? No, can't see any funny clips. Yeah, I bet that's got to come forward first. Oh no, tell a lie, it does come off. That's handy. Oh my good lord, look at that mess. And that mess. Right, let's get that out of the way. Right, so let's try then just lifting everything. Oh. I can't make out what this is set on. I think it's set on drill at the moment. Oh, there we go. It is a tight fit in the case. Right, that looks like a little LED at the front. That's lifted that out. So that's not stuck in the housing, it was stuck on the switch. Right, they're going to need a good clean, aren't they? Right, we've got a gear selector thing here that seems to go into there, so I think we can probably just pull that off like that. Just got to remember it went that way forward with two at the front, and I think that can probably do with being cleaned with those bits. Right, now what have we got? What holds this on here? Does that come off? Does it twist and come? Oh, so we twist. Oh, look at that. Oh, and then bits fall out. Oh, it's only one of them that's fallen out. So I'll just pop that back on there. It's one of the planets. Right, so that can go on there. Looks like that. Oh, another set of planets on there. So why? Oh, they don't want to come off on there, do they? Oh, yes they do. There they go. They're just sticky. So that ideally should have stayed in there, but it didn't. So we won't worry about that too much at the moment. So that can go there. We've got three of those that go there, and then that. Yep, that's definitely part of the motor. What about this thing? That's just like a shield. So that can go there, out of the way. You can see it's pretty dirty. And this, that's held on with a screw. That doesn't feel too bad actually. We know the motor works. Right, but you can see, messy. So what we really need to do, I think, is we'll separate this. So we need to get this off of here. Now is that one marked? Oh yes, look, that one's marked with a red dot. So we can desolder here and desolder here. Right, the soldering iron's fired up, so let's see if we can't pull these out. Ugh, everything is so black and dirty. Hopefully the black is just the brushes, but hopefully it's not because they're completely worn out. But we'll find out. Right. Right, so that's plus. And this side, that's a terrible soldering job. It almost looks like a do-it-yourself job, that one. And there we are. Right, let's see if we can at least get some of the dirt off of this switch. But I don't think the fact that it's dirty is the problem, because I've seen plenty of dirty switches over the years. But this is, that is jam solid, so I don't think it's that mechanism there causing it, because it won't move. So the switch from forward to reverse, it's stuck where it is, so that won't go in either. So I think whatever the problem is internal to this. So cleaning it obviously makes it look a little bit better. And there we go. And I think what I might do is put some alcohol on here, because I don't think that does any harm to anything. And that might give it a bit of a better clean. But I think basically whatever the problem is that we've got, it's inside the switch. And I did a quick look on the internet last night, and apparently for the cost of the switch, which Dewalt sell as this piece, I can almost buy a new drill. So I don't think we'll be replacing the switch if it involves replacing this whole piece. It's possible that some person somewhere in the Far East might sell just the switch, but what obviously I'm going to hope is that the switch itself can in some way be repaired. That would be the nicest thing. Alright, clean bit of rag underneath. I don't really want to try and disconnect these wires because they're not soldered on. I don't know what they've done. It's like some sort of welding process, so I don't really want to disturb those unless I absolutely have to. You can see it here. It's, I just don't know what they do, but it's It's not soldered, that's for sure. This disconnects here, but I'm not sure that makes any difference to anything. But it looks like this and this are two little clips, so that looks like that might come apart along that split line. And there's one there, and there can't be one here because the switch is in the way, but there is one up the top there as well. So it could be that if we can get all of those undone, then the switch will come apart. It just don't, there's such a good click fit that they don't want to come apart. It's starting to come apart there. We've still got this one down here. Oh, that's starting to come apart. Right, we are actually starting to get movement. Just not as much up here as we would like. That's there. Oh. What is that? Oh, that's supposed to be there. That's solid. That's solid. That's variable something, or part of the switch. That's the brushes for the switch, and that one's got part of the end of it eaten away. I can see that there straight away. So let's see if we can lift. Oh look, we've got a tiny little spring. Remember, it goes in that hole. Tiny little spring down there. That goes there, and that I think has been eaten away at one end, so that's going to cause us problems. Why are you sticking to that? But none of this explains why this doesn't want to move. And it still doesn't want to move. So whatever the problem is further in there. Does that? That looks like it might lift up. Let's see if we can get that to. It doesn't want to, does it? That seems to be stuck as well, but it definitely looks like it might lift up. There's another piece down in there that's got a spring on it. There's a spring there, but they look like they're attached. Yep, that just lifts up and down, so that's obviously like an on-off switch, and that moves when that goes across there. In fact, that might be the off, mightn't it? When it gets to there, it turns the motor off, and when it's over there, it's on. So this being jammed where it is actually the fault. So, does this little bit here come out? That looks like it's all one piece up there, doesn't it? Unless that's a... I wonder if that's a joint line there. Right, I've managed to get a thin blade in above this part of the switch, and if I pry it underneath there, you can see I've got movement of the switch, but I can't quite work out what's holding it up, because obviously there's a spring there, but I can't quite see. That spring shouldn't really be holding it, but if I pry it too much, it's beginning to lift this terminal out, which is not the end of the world, but I can't quite see why it's jammed further over here. Yes, it really does not want to move. Look, it's solid there, but it could be, of course, that it's solid because it's caught here, but that doesn't give that impression. That doesn't give the impression at all that it's caught on that. So I'm not really sure what it's caught on. It's caught on something, that's for sure. Right, I'm going to do this on camera so that when you see this disappear, you'll know that I'm telling the truth and it disappeared. I'm going to try to lever that whole piece up, that contact up, and there's a spring on the end. I don't know where this contact goes or what it does, but I don't know what shape it is either. I don't want to come out. Oh dear, does that mean it's... oh, it's bending something underneath. And it's still... it's jammed solid. Ah! Oops. Oh, well, something just hit me, because I've got little bits of black stuck all over me. Let's hope they were all dirt. And something smells slightly burnt. So I think we might have finally got to wherever it was we needed to get gotting. That could well be why nothing is moving, look. I don't think that's supposed to be like that. And at the back there, what is that? Oh, that's grease. That's looking a little bit chewed up. Now what about this? Does this flip now? Oh, not very well. I don't know if that's... well, it's not broken, is it? That is in there. So does that bit only come out if that leg comes out with it? That could be the case, couldn't it? I think we're going to need a closer look at that. Oh, that's... does that... no, that doesn't come out. That's just grease, I think. It looks like copper-based grease. Right, now there's this. And so that's loose here, but... oh, there it goes. Ah, that comes out of there. That still leaves us with this switch part that seems to be jammed in, and the plastic is damaged there. I can see it's not badly damaged, but it is damaged. I can't see how that bit comes out, but it must come out. Because that is some sort of switch. Oh, there it goes. So that switch is working. Alright, it's moving. I think working might be an optimistic use of the word. So how does that come out? Why don't you want to move? That's locked in solid. It will not move. Oh, idiot. I bet it's connecting to those two, isn't it? So it can't come out because it's part of those two wires that go up to the motor. Yeah, of course, because then that would give us a change of direction to the motor. Yeah, so that's that. So that's that. Like I say, that plastic is damaged, but this is where the problem is, obviously, because that can't really be a switch, can it? Because it's locked solid onto there. So something here is not right. Ah, that's come out of there. It's all bent there, but that might be my fault that that's bent. But that doesn't explain what on earth is all of this. Oh, it's got a tiny little metal disc on the end of it. I can't see why it would need that. Oh, and then that presses onto this. Why on earth would it need that? Why do you need electrical contact actually inside that bit of the switch? And that is literally hanging on by a hair. I don't know if you can see that. So that has had it completely. And it still looks like there's something. There's a bit more. Does that come off the other end? Alright, well, so we've got a whole piece that we don't really know what's going on, because if that right, I don't know how well you can see, but if you look down there you'll see there's a tiny little switch, and if I go like that, which would be all the way out, that would be off. And as you go in, on, and then that part presumably is variable. So that's off, so the spring in this, that is in there, that was jammed, would push that all the way out, so that's all the way out. Then we would go in, and we're on, and then that all the way in as far as it will go must be the variable speed. So that last bit is the variable speed, and that was the bit that was on there, I guess, which is burnt. And if you remember, I said the end of one of the contacts is missing, and I bet we can't get those. Right, so the fault appears to be, that does seem to still be working. So the fault is a mixture of, well, I don't know if the spring was jamming, because the spring sat there on that pip. Now it's one hell of a strong spring, and so that then went into the end of there, but of course this was all mangled up inside it. And what we don't know is, what was this supposed to be? Right, I don't know what it shows, but that was bent like a dog leg. It went was jammed up inside this part of the switch. My guess is it's supposed to lay flat, because I think when that's in there it will lie down against the plastic in the back. I've put this contact back in, so I'm going to try to push this one back down now into place and see if it will go. Right, I'm trying to assemble this bit blind, as it were, because we don't actually know how it goes together. This little pip has got to face towards the trigger. I've worked that much out, because when it's on, it sits over a little plastic pip inside the trigger, but the little pip on it actually touches against the connector on this red wire. So if you imagine that this is this way around, then obviously the pip needs to be this side, because it's got to touch that side. Big problem is what happens next, because this, judging by the hole in it, was probably meant to sit in there and go on top of that. And then this, obviously, is just a mess. I'm guessing that the way that that is slightly curved at the end is because it's supposed to rub against the metal that I straightened in there. So I think this goes in there next. And then once that's in there, assuming I can get it in there and onto the right spot, then we've got the spring with what looks like a little plastic cap on the end, goes in there, and that helps to hold everything in place. And this, if it was in one piece, I'm guessing would fold down, so it would have actually been in there like that, and presumably was a little bit sprung loaded, because it needed, although I'm talking about an upward movement, remember this would be up the other way, so it would be pressing up like that, which would mean it would be pressing down onto there. Now I don't know why, because all it does is join this red wire to that white wire back there as far as I can make out, but that also joins to the direction switch, so I really don't know what is being achieved by that. And again, this part I can't really understand, because I thought this was part of some sort of variable resistor, but when the terminals are here, it connects this point and that point, and then this central point, when it moves up here, connects this central point to that point. So it's basically a switch, and it either connects to that spot there or that spot there. And again, I'm not 100% sure why. This bit up here, I can't work out what it does, because there doesn't appear to be anything there. It just looks like it slides on there without doing anything. So I'm not too sure about that. But the biggest problem is, what do we do with that? So I'm going to have a dig around in amongst all my scraps and see if I can find something that I can use to fix that. Right, using this bit of old zinc terminal, which could actually be steel plated with zinc, I don't know. I've tried to make a copy of this, because obviously this is useless. That's it in place there. It's got a little bit of springiness to it, and it's a bit loose, but it's there. All we can do is try it and see what happens. Right, I managed to get that back in. I had to put this part in first and then the spring afterwards. The spring was already in the main body, but push the spring down there. Tiny little silvery spring that went in there. And now I'm stuck with this little piece, because this little piece is damaged at one end. It's got a piece missing off that end, and I don't actually know what effect that's going to have. So I think all we can do is put it together as it is and see what effect it has, because clearly it's meant to join that point and that point together at some time, or this point and this point together at some time. So it either will or it won't, depending on that. It's possible that this was at the other end, because that seems to have a gouge in it, but more on one side than the other. And in fact, if you look at it, it looks like that gouge would have suited this to be that way round, like that, because then you've got the shorter leg on the side where it's dug in a shorter amount. These two connectors would then connect that point, and then when it was slid forward, these two connectors would connect this point and this point. So there's some chance that it would work. I just don't know. I mean, it's is the obvious answer to that question. We can try pushing this back together. Looks like that's more or less all lined up. Right. Well, you heard what I heard, which is a sort of clicking noise by a clicking noise. And that part, at least, does work. Making a rather strange noise, but it does work. I need to have a look at this because this is filthy. You don't really need to watch me trying to clean this, I'm sure. So I'll give this a bit of a clean because then we can try it on our switch. Take this end plastic piece off, and I've no idea if it matters which way around it's on, but I'm going to mark it there and there so it goes back in the same place just in case it matters. But I don't think it does. Oh, that's tight. God, that is tight. I wonder that didn't want to come undone. That's that one. Yep, that one's almost as tight as well. I think they must do these up with machines when they put them in. I'm not a great one for pouring cleaning fluid solutions into electric motors. It never seems a very sensible move to me. Oh, I think it's mostly little bits and pieces caught on the magnet, so yeah, maybe we can give that a bit of a clean. I think what I'll do is I'll take this down to my other workshop where I've got the compressor, and I'll give it a blowout as well in a minute. And believe you me, you don't want to watch that because the noise it makes is horrendous. Right. Ugh. I like the way it's got these little rubber bumpers on it. There's one there and one there, and the back of the motor has got one there and one there. Right, I've given the motor a fairly good clean, and I'm just putting a little drop of oil. It's a sealed bearing, but I'm hoping a tiny drop of oil will just run in and help loosen up the grease that's packed inside that bearing. And the same thing at this end, if I can get a tiny little drop in there, whether any will actually seep through and get into the grease that's packed in the bearing, I don't know. But obviously you'd only want a tiny little drop. I haven't blown it out yet, but it's come up pretty clean, so I'm quite pleased with that. Right, I've just temporarily tacked the motor back onto here. Now obviously, with the fault that it had before, it would start up, wouldn't it, as soon as this was on here. So let's see if it does. If it starts up and tries shooting across the table. Right, well, it hasn't tried to come on. Of course it's possible it doesn't work at all now. Oh, well, the light comes on, we've got a light. Now that's odd. So we've got a brake. It stops straight away. We've got a light. Now does that stay on for a little bit? We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But I don't know if you noticed, there was something odd as I push it in. It's slow to get started, but then it gets going. Up, faster, faster, faster. Slows down and stops. I think I've somehow gone off the end of the travel on one of those switches. Maybe the piece that I made for this is slightly too long. It did seem a little bit longer, but I thought that would be okay. But maybe it's actually falling off the end. Right, normally I'm a great believer in leaving as much of this alone as possible, but it is such a mess, this one, that I don't think that's really a possible thing to do. So if we take out, actually the inside is looking really good, so it could well be that we don't need to take this apart, but the outside of it is looking such a horrible mess. But I can't help but wonder at the fact that we might need to take it apart and have a look at it. I'll just put these things roughly where they go. Does that lift out? Let's go in there. See, that's grease but mixed with something. Right, now does this one come out, or do we have to... No, I think we have to take this cover off. And that's looking like a Phillips. Let's try that one. That's it. Wow, that is tight. Oh, and my battery's going flat. I'm going to lose you any second now. Oh, my hands are too filthy to turn it off. 4 screws out. So now we can lift that bit off. Oh, we've got a little plungery thing in there. And does this come off? No, that's not coming off any further by the looks of things. Oh, well, that's handy. That can all come out in one lump. So there's... I'll just hang on to it like that. So there's 4 more gears. And that, so that can come out like that. And that looks like bump, 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 so that looks like that's the impact mechanism. So we would expect to find balls, and we do. Are they going to be awkward to get at? These look like lock pins in the middle there, so we'll get those out for a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those lock pins seem to be so that when you turn this from this end instead of the motor end, it locks so that you're not trying to turn the motor and damaging the motor. Not quite sure why that doesn't... I thought that would probably lift off, but it doesn't. What happens if we... Yeah, I can't get hold of those little balls. I would have... Perhaps this bit's got to come off this way first. Oh, well, that's the middle piece that goes with those. That's a ring that was around the middle piece. And we still haven't got the little balls to come out. Are they going to come out? Oh, they're not little balls, they're little rods, but the end of it looks like a little ball. So we've got 2, 4, got 2 more to come apparently. Oh, 5, 1 more, 6. And that's it. Now what's that we're looking at down there? Oh, that's a washer, so that looks like that sits underneath those bits. Or I guess you could say it sits on top of them really, couldn't you? It just depends how you want to view it. Never mind, we'll try and remember that. Right, and then that's a pity, that's connected straight to here, so we really do need to take that off. Right, that's coming out easy now. I've got the base part is clamped in a vise on a small pair of vice grips. Right, so that's loose, so we should be able to pop that out with a magnet. Right, so that's what we were after, and yeah, it looks like it's got Loctite on it. And that was in. And now you can see it is actually a Tonks. I couldn't see that before. Right, now we need to get the actual chuck itself off. Well, I'll show you how tight this is. This, it won't move because it won't come undone. Now when it moves it must be the whole something in here twisting, so watch what happens. I can get all that movement, and something in here is twisting, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if I just keep going, something's going to snap. You can see that, because if I'm bending that central rod or whatever connector is inside there, it's just going to break. I cannot see any way of getting this off without destroying it, and I don't really want to destroy it. You almost don't want to know, but take my word for it, in there is a torque screw, and there, and there. And this is the Torx bit I'm trying to undo them with. The rest of it you don't want to know, because the air is turning blue around here. Sorry about the noise. You're not going to believe this unless you see it. It doesn't want to come out, but there's the first Torx screw. It's just there, and I can't quite wiggle it enough to get it out at the moment, but I think once the others are out, it will come out. Right, screws are still in there, but now I can finally lift that bit up. That releases the rest of this mechanism, so we can give that a good clean up now. So that releases all of that. There's my tool again that I used. I had to hold it like that with a pair of long nose pliers. Not fun, but it's done. And you can see now why you can't get to the screws, because there they are. There's, you can see they still don't want to come out because they're caught behind. I think with a bit of wiggling and turning I can get them out, but you can see that they are caught behind there. Right, and we've got spring, and then that looks like it's a bearing. That's, oh, one of them's fallen out. See, I'm pretty sure they would come out eventually when they found their little spot where. And this is your rat-a-tat-tat mechanism. I should think that it slides over and goes brrrr when you're more or less there, perhaps. Not sure. Let's see, yeah, see that one will come out now. Let's see if we can get that one out. Right, that one's coming out now. But now you can see what the problem is. When I try to undo this chuck, this whole thing starts to bend, which is, you know, it's unbelievable. And I'm assuming that this is some kind of hard plastic, so, and I've got a bearing there, so I don't really want to heat it. I'm absolutely amazed that bearing feels as good as new. But at least now I can put this in the vise, and I'll put the impact tool on this end, but you can see the damage I've done there. I mean, that has been cut into quite hard where I've been trying to lever it open. You're going to want to see this with the noise, if it works. Look at that. Impact gun. Here we have cleaned up parts. I know a lot of YouTubers put all this stuff in, you know, chemicals and mix them all up and use all sorts of wonderful methods to clean them. I'm afraid I'm a bit low tech, so all I've done is use the cloth. So most of these have just been wiped over with multiple cloths like this, and until they're clean. So that's how most of these bits have ended up clean. This part I've not taken apart any further because I really can't see any point in doing that. It's still got some grease on it. The bearing in there seems as good as new. I just don't see any point in taking it apart any further than it is. It's got a little spring there, which is you've got to be careful of, and then obviously this piece would come off, and that's under tension because I think it's all part of the clickety-click mechanism. So I think the simplest thing to do is just leave that bit alone because there's no obvious sign that it's broken. Now this obviously needs to go back on there, so that's where I'm going to start. I don't think you can get it on wrong, in the sense that if you look at this, it's got a big wide gauged mark there with no teeth, and then you've got teeth, and then you've got teeth, and then when you get round to this side there's another huge gauge there, but it's only that wide there, and then there's an absence of teeth, and then it's only that wide, and that's a different width to that, and that is a different width to that. So I think overall you can't really get it on wrong, and then when you look in here, hopefully you can see that's the widest point between what look like teeth in there. So realistically it can only go somewhere in this region, somewhere around here, and there it goes. So if you try anywhere else it won't go on, but when you get to roughly that area there, boink, it's gone on. So I assume that's where that goes. And then we've got this piece, and this sits on here, and eventually we'll do the click 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 click. And again I think there's only one point where it sits happily. I can't, because if you look, it's got 1, 2, 3 offsets in the bottom of it, and they're slightly well, offset. So I think that it won't go down into place, so that I don't think that's all the way down, and I don't think it will go all the way down until you are actually in the right spot. Right, I've found out how you determine which is the right spot. There's a little bump cut there, tiny little bump, and the spring that's in here just pokes out slightly there. So this will only fall over that spring when it's in that spot. So you get it roughly there, and somewhere close to there it will drop down. Oh, there it goes, and it's now flush completely with the top, and that's the only place where I could get it to be flush, so that would appear to be the spot. Next we have a spring, which I think sits in the middle there, because this bit needs to go in there, and it needs to be able to do that, and then obviously this goes on there, and again we've got some little marks, and I'm not sure how important it is for these to line up. That's a hole there, that's a hole there, that's a hole there, and that, you can see there's a funny little shape, it's almost like it's sitting in that shape, so I think that has got to be the spot it needs. And then we've got these 3 screws, which of course were our nightmare, because they're the 3 screws that I had to undo with that thing, because I couldn't get this thing off. Now with a bit of luck these now fit in there okay. Oh, that one's just fallen out. Let's see, right, that one's going in nice and easy. Are these magnetic? Not really. Simple answer to that one. Alright, so then that one. I've heard people say if you wind this backwards you hear a click. Don't know if I heard a click or not. One of the joys of being old. Anyone hear a click? I think no clicks were harmed in this video. But never mind, that is going in anyway, so that's going in. This one's going in nice and easy. So that one's going in easy. Alright, so that's tight. This one's going fairly easy as well. These are so small that I'm not going to use the cordless screwdriver on them. I think this one was a bit tighter, so maybe I haven't got this one in a perfect spot, but that one's going in okay. Yep, that's nice and tight. And that bit can jump up and down. I'm not sure how important that is. I'm not even sure that that's correct, but it can do it. I would have thought we would feel it hitting those little teethy bits underneath, but it's not. So I don't know if that means I've done something wrong or if that's... I just don't know is a simple answer as that. Right. Right, I think next we've got these things, and the sort of bulge on them, it's a pity it doesn't face downwards because they drop in okay, but it faces upwards, and you can bet your life that they're very awkward to get hold of. So oh, that one's gone in alright, so maybe we're going to be okay. I will put a tiny bit of grease on these in a minute, but I don't think they need to be covered in grease yet, because the amount of movement in there is just fairly gentle up and down, and a little bit of grease from the top will get in there. I'm pretty sure they weren't all packed with grease when we took them out, they were just slightly shiny. Oh, and there. Last one. In there, and we just need some grease. And what I'll do, if they'll let me, is pull them up and put a drop of grease on them. No, they're not going to let me, are they? Okay, so I'll just put a little bit of grease around the top of each one. And I'm sure some of that is going to go down in the side because they're not a really tight fit. So I'm sure they'll have plenty of grease on them. Alright, so that's them. This is just ordinary multi-purpose grease that you might use, well, for anything really. Right. Now I remember this washer was sitting at the bottom. Now again I'm going to try and get some grease in down here because that's just a little bearing in there. It's a roller bearing, so if we get some grease down inside there, we know then that it's going to be reasonably well greased in there, and it won't hurt to have a little bit of extra grease in these grooves, because then if anything it can expand and get up on everything else. So I'll put a bit more in there. Right, so that washer went on there, and then this ring with that face down. Right, we'll put a bit more grease on there. That's our drive peg, so that can go on there next, and then we'll put a bit more grease on. So that would suggest that they fit on that cross corner. Let's see, whoops. Oh, there he goes. Oh, I see a tight fit. And then this one. And again, I was in. And again, I think I'll put a little bit more grease in that case, because everything seems to have moved. Right, and then plonk that there. Yep. Oh, well, it seems to be on. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little bumps, so they don't have to line up, but that's what bumps over the ring of metal things in there. Make sure we've got some grease on our pins, and then we've got our greasy gears which we can slide onto here. One, and they're obviously a very tight fit. Two, three, four. And I'll just put a little bit more grease in there to make sure that there's plenty on that outer ring when it first starts to move. This has got a little cutout on it, as well as 3 little pips, but it's got that cut out there, so unfortunately I can't see where that cutout is unless that cutout is there, which it might well be. So I should think that's probably it, wouldn't you? That looks like it's going to sit there. Right, next, I don't think we can get it wrong. I'm going to put a little bit of grease in there, and you'll see why any second now. I'll put a little bit of grease in there because I think that must go down there, and then this must screw onto there. So I don't think we can really get that bit wrong. And this time we've got screws that are Phillips by the looks of things. So we've got one, let's get a small Phillips screwdriver. Two. Come on, drop down there. Right. Fingers are so slimy they don't want to hold the screwdriver. That one will be in there. Ah, that one's going in lovely and easy. Did it click? So really we want this one opposite it, don't we? So let's come out. Oh, yeah, it might have been a tiny click. Do we believe in clicking or do we not believe in clicking? Alright, let's try this one. Yes, I think I heard a tiny little bump rather than a click, but that'll do for me. Right, one more. So let's bring that one out. So have I already ruined this one? That sounded like a bit of a click. Yeah, look at that, look, it's going much easier now. Oh wow, all these people who talk about clicks, maybe they know what they're talking about. Right, I'm assuming this one can only face down because it's got like all these little ridges on it, and there's lots of little ridges in there. So I think that one has, and I'm going to put this on first because I think we need that before this bit goes on. Now I'll do this in pieces. Now this obviously has got to mate with the inside of there, and we've already put plenty of grease on there. I'll put a tiny bit on here, but I don't think we need a huge amount on here because of the amount that's already underneath. So that should, when it finds the right spot, slot down in there. So come on, find your right spot. That's easier said than done apparently. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. Look, once you get in the right spot, straight on. Right, put a little bit of grease on those pins. So that's a little bit of grease on each pin. A little bit of grease on, well, that's a cog round the outside. And then that gives us these. And in fact, I think it's easier to put these on with my fingers than it is using tweezers. Oh, missed that one. Just up in the air a bit. There we go. Just drop it in there, over onto there. Drop it in there, over onto there. and we'll give these a reasonable coating of grease so that we know they've got a fair bit of grease on them. So they've all got some grease on them. Right, now we've got this ring, and again it's not obvious which way around it goes, but I don't think it matters, but it has to fit there, and something looks a bit odd because that is sitting a long way up, but maybe the gap is deliberate because we need to move from one set of gears to a second set of gears, so maybe that's so. So let's get some grease on there. Oh, there we go. That's joined onto the bit underneath. Right, want some grease on the pins, and then we want, oops, 1, 2, 3. Have a little bit of grease in there, and of course this will end up with a motor, cog from the motor in there, but on top of it first we've got this. And does that matter which way that goes? It does, because it's not wanting to go there, so we must have an offset to those tabs. There we go, that's on. So obviously that's going to go onto there, that's going to go onto there. Motor we know is okay, reasonably clean, that goes on the end of the motor. Right, motor, this looks like dirt, but it's marks in the case. I've given this a reasonable clean. I haven't gone crazy about it because the bits you want to clean mostly are in there where you can't get to them, and I don't want to grind all this off and get this apart if I really don't need to. It feels okay. There's a little red dot there, I don't know if it shows that I put there, and there's a red dot there, so I don't know if it really makes a huge difference. I mean, it's quite possible sometimes with these things that they'll only go on one way. And that goes on there, that goes on there. Right, tighten that, tighten that. Right, so then we've got this. Now this, I thought, just clicked into. Oh, that looks like the red mark there as well on that case, and that lines up with that red mark. So yeah, so maybe that is right. Maybe that's exactly where I want it. Oh, my little baby rubber bobby bumper, whatever these things are trying to escape. Okay, why didn't any of you tell me that I'd forgotten to put this in? Now that's got to go on there like that, and that's got to go the other side of there, which it does. So that's there, so that's got to be on there, and then that's got to be able to pivot. It can't pivot at the moment because it needs the lid on. We need our little thing back in there. This doesn't want to sit flat. Come on, sit down flat where you're supposed to be. That seems to be okay. That seems to be in the right place. Alright. The same problem as last time really. Gonna get all into the right spot. And then praying. Right. So we never did find out. So does this thing move? Oh, it's stiff. That's one way. That's the other way. There's a sort of middle spot, but it's there. Right. So that bit is now done. So I've now got this bit all built up. So we just need to solder these wires on that motor. That one's red, so that's where the red wire goes. Oh, there we go. There we go. Right, there's the two cleaned up shell halves. They're not as clean as I would like them, but that's as clean as I can get them. In fact, it's odd because the outside cleaned up better than the inside, I think. Where the grease and the carbon from the brushes has come out on here, it's just stained into the plastic. I can't get it off. Right, before we can put this into its case, we need to get this onto here. There's a little metal groove there, so that hooks into there, and then obviously we've got to follow it across to the other side. And when we get to the other side we should see the same again, which we do down there. Now this just needs to go up across there, over there, oh, and into there. There we are. So again I think we've got drill there, so I think that's at the top, speed selection there, this lot got to go in there, and this has got to go onto the switch. There we go. So it goes that way around, and that goes like that. So that goes in there like that. Right, I think all that lot's in place, so then it's a case of trying to fathom out how this lot went. Because like I say, this wire is ridiculous. I've never known anything like it. It's like fence wiring or something. You can really feel, look, if I go like that, it's move the whole thing. It's so tough. I just don't understand it. I don't remember finding wire on things that's that tough before. Right, now that must go down there. That goes in there. But we still need to get this in place. I can't pull it tight enough to go over to there. It is just ridiculous. Never mind, we'll get there eventually. Right, so this has got to come over here. Lift that up, because that has got to sit over there like that. And somewhere over here, this has got to slot down. And I can't get it to go over there and slot down because this wire is so unbelievably tight. Right, that's gone down into where it's supposed to be. Right, now this somehow has got to come across here, down through there. I mean, that's gone down anyway. Right, that's free to move, so that's okay. And then we're left with this, is still... Ah, there it goes. It's strange, it's just... You would have thought that it would have something holding it more tightly, but it looks like that peg there just goes into the bottom case and holds it, but the wires are trying to pull it back up again. Now let's see. I need this to move over. Come on, move over. Right, that's near in the middle. Alright, I think that's all on. Let's just check this is free to move. Yep, that feels nice and free to move. That's moving okay, so that's alright. So now, screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it helps if you go the right way. Oh, pot. Right, that seems to be everything back together. See what happens when we put a battery on then. So that's a battery. Lights coming on. Have a way. Oh, I seem to have lost the brake. I think until I can get a new or a second-hand replacement trigger, I can live without a brake. I don't sell these tools that I repair, so it doesn't really matter to me. And that's obviously going to be completely useful and a usable drill. It just hasn't got the brake. It can just overrun a fraction at the end. Right, so we need to wait and see if that light goes off, because we don't want that to stay on forever. Right, now what happens if we screw this on? Come on, light, go off. Oh, there it goes, it's gone off. So right, so that's okay then. Just put a large hex key in there. Right, but obviously that's gone on a bit tighter than it was. That's a T20. So if we drop that in there, and of course it's no good turning it in the clockwise direction because it's left-hand thread. So to do it up, we need to go anti-clockwise. Oh. Well, that's God knows how many foot-pounds or foot-inches or whatever, but I don't want it too tight. And that is on number 2. Well, that's a bit stiff, but it's working. Well, this isn't much of a test into a bit of wood, but it's a 7mm drill straight down into a bit of wood. So chuck seems to be working okay. Obviously it drilled that hole alright. Right, let's put it on number 1. Let's try it as holding a screwdriver bit. What have we got here? Let's try. just get it started first. Oh, there we go. Oh, more than more power than I'm ever going to want for a screwy. Right, to save taking you outside, I've just found, I don't know what this is, I found it lying around in the garden. It looks like a solid bit of cement actually. But it is working, as you can see. Right, I don't know how well you can tell from the video, but that's now all cleaned and fixed. Battery is cleaned, charger works, batteries work, and the case is not perfect. I'll just have to move you to one side a second to get the lid down, but the case is cleaned as well. So we've sort of got one job finished.